Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a world that's grim, shadowy, and more than a little unsettling. A time when the human mind was a mystery, and those struggling with its darker corners were often treated with less compassion than a stray dog. We're diving into how depression was treated in the 1800s, a period where mental health care was less about healing and more about control, confinement, and some truly bizarre ideas about the soul. Forget the cozy image of Victorian parlors and gaslit romance. The truth? If you were battling depression back then, you wouldn't last a week in their so-called treatments without questioning your own sanity. So, before we begin, take a second to like this video and subscribe if you're into peeling back history's uglier layers. Drop a comment below, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is. It's always wild to see who's joining us from across the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe grab a blanket for comfort, and let's sink into this grim journey together. Picture this. It's 1825, and you wake up in a world that doesn't understand you. The weight in your chest, the fog in your mind, the way even sunlight feels like it's mocking you. It's not just a bad day. It's depression, though nobody calls it that yet. Back then, you might be labeled as suffering from melancholia, nervous exhaustion, or, if someone's feeling particularly poetic, a malaise of the soul. But here's the kicker. No one knows what to do with you. The 19th century is a time of horse-drawn carriages, candlelit surgeries, and a medical system that thinks bleeding you with leeches fixes everything. Your mind, though, that's a black box, and the people trying to fix it are armed with superstition, moral judgment, and tools that belong in a torture chamber. Your bed is a lumpy straw mattress. The air smells of coal smoke and damp wool, and your family is already whispering that you're not right. The church bell tolls outside, a relentless reminder of a world that expects you to get up, work, and smile, even when your soul feels like it's drowning. Let's start with where you live. If you're a city dweller, your home is a cramped, drafty room in a tenement, walls thin enough to hear your neighbor's coughs. If you're rural, it's a creaky farmhouse where the wind whistles through gaps in the wood. Either way, privacy is a fantasy. Your family, maybe a spouse, kids, or nosy in-laws, shares your space, watching your every move. The moment you stop acting normal, they notice. You're not eating the watery porridge they call breakfast. You're not laughing at the tavern jokes. You're staring out the window too long, and that's dangerous. In the 1800s, sadness isn't just personal. It's a public failing. People don't ask, "Are you okay?" They mutter, "What's wrong with them?" Or worse, "Are they possessed?" The line between mental struggle and sin is razor thin, and you're already teetering on it. Now, let's talk about the first step of your day: getting help. Spoiler alert, it's not a warm hug or a therapist's couch. If you're lucky, your family might call a local doctor, who's probably more experienced with setting broken bones than understanding your mind. He arrives, reeking of tobacco and pomade, his black bag clinking with glass vials and metal tools. He peers at you through spectacles, asks a few curt questions, and declares your humors are out of balance. The four humors, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, are the cornerstone of 19th century medicine, a holdover from ancient Greece. Depression, they believe, is often an excess of black bile, the humor tied to melancholy. The cure? Purge it. How? Oh, buckle up. The doctor might start with bloodlet lancing. Yes, actual bloodletting. He pulls out a lancet, or worse, a jar of wriggling leeches, and sets to work draining your excess blood into a bowl. The idea is to balance your body, but all it does is leave you dizzy, pale, and weaker than you already were. If bloodletting isn't his style, he might prescribe an emetic to make you vomit or a laxative to cleanse your system. These aren't gentle pills. They're violent purges that leave you retching for hours, your body trembling, your mind no clearer. The logic? If your body is purified, your mind will follow. Spoiler: it doesn't. You're still depressed, Just now you're also dehydrated and exhausted. If the doctor's feeling particularly modern, he might skip the leeches and go for a tonic. These are bottles of dubious liquids, often laced with opium, alcohol, or mercury, sold as nerve restoratives. Laudanum, a tincture of opium, is a favorite. It dulls the pain, sure, but it also hooks you fast. You might feel a brief lift, a foggy euphoria, but soon you're craving the bottle just to function. Mercury-based tonics are even worse. They're marketed as cures for everything from sadness to syphilis, but they rot your teeth, poison your kidneys, and, if you're really unlucky, drive you into hallucinations. The doctor doesn't warn you about this. He just hands you the bottle, collects his fee, and moves on to the next patient. You're left clutching a potion that's as likely to kill you as cure you. But let yes say the Dr. Yes treatments done T work, and they probably won T. Your family's patience is wearing thin. You're not snapping out of it, and their whispers are turning to arguments. In the 1800s, mental illness isn't just a medical issue, it's a social one. A depressed person is a burden, a shame, a stain on the family's reputation. If you're a woman, it's worse. You're expected to be the cheerful heart of the household, and any deviation is a betrayal. Men aren't spared either. Melancholy is seen as weakness, a failure of character. The pressure to fix yourself is crushing, and the options are dwindling. This is where things get darker. If your symptoms persist, the next step isn't a support group or a prescription. It's the asylum. The word alone sends a chill down your spine, and for good reason. Asylums in the 1800s aren't places of healing. They're warehouses for the insane, a catch-all term for anyone who doesn't fit society's mold. Depression, anxiety, epilepsy, even rebelliousness could land you in one. The decision isn't yours. Your family, a doctor, or even a local magistrate can commit you, often with little evidence beyond they're not themselves. You're bundled into a carriage, your protests ignored, and driven to a hulking stone building that looks more like a prison than a hospital. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies and despair. The asylum is overcrowded, underfunded, and staffed by attendants who are more jailers than nurses. Patients, some screaming, some catatonic, some perfectly lucid, are lumped together, no matter their condition. You're stripped of your clothes, given a rough gown, and assigned a number. Your name? That's gone. Your dignity? Long forgotten. The treatment here is about containment, not cure. If you're lucky, you're locked in a cell with a straw pallet and a bucket. If you're not, you're chained to a wall, your wrists raw from iron cuffs. The asylum's approach to depression is a mix of neglect and brutality. One popular method is the moral treatment, a fancy term for forcing you to conform through shame and discipline. You're lectured on your weakness, forced to perform manual labor, and punished for any sign of sadness. Crying? That's a paddling. Refusing to eat? You're force-fed through a tube. The goal isn't to understand your pain, it's to erase it, or at least hide it from view. Some asylums experiment with hydrotherapy, which sounds soothing but isn't. You're plunged into ice-cold baths or wrapped in wet sheets for hours, the shock meant to reset your mind. It doesn't. It just leaves you shivering and more hopeless than before. Then there's the spinning chair. Yes, you heard that right. Some doctors believe spinning you in a chair until you, nauseous or unconscious, will shake loose the melancholy. Others prefer the tranquilizer chair, a device that straps you in, immobilizes your limbs, and covers your head to calm you. Hours in this contraption don't cure depression. They just make you pray for escape. And if you're really unlucky, you might face early forms of electroshock or even tree panning, drilling a hole in your skull to release the bad spirits. These aren't treatments, they're experiments, and you're the guinea pig. Let's pause here for a moment. You're in this asylum surrounded by screams and shadows, your body battered by cures that feel like punishments. But what about the world outside? Society isn't exactly rallying to your cause. In the 1800s, depression is a stigma, a secret to be buried. Novels and newspapers romanticize melancholy as poetic for the rich, but for the average person, it's a mark of failure. The church doesn't help either. Many preachers call depression a sin, a sign of God's disfavor. Your suffering isn't just medical, it's moral, and you're to blame. Back in the asylum, food is another ordeal. Breakfast, if you can call it that, is a bowl of gruel, watery and tasteless, sometimes crawling with weevils. Bread is stale, vegetables are non-existent, and meat is a distant memory. Malnutrition weakens you further, making the fog in your mind thicker. Sleep is no escape. Your cell is cold, the straw itches, and the cries of other patients echo through the night. You dream of home, but home doesn't want you. Not like this. As the days blur into weeks, you start to wonder if you'll ever leave. Some patients do, discharged when their families can afford the fees or when they redeemed manageable. But many don't. Asylums are black holes. Once you're in, escape is rare. And the longer you stay, the more the treatments chip away at who you are. Your depression, once a heavy shadow, now feels like the only thing tethering you to yourself. The world outside moves on, but you're stuck. A ghost in a system that doesn't care if you heal or break. This is just the beginning of our journey into the 1800s approach to depression. It's a world where ignorance meets cruelty, where the mind is a battleground and the weapons are blunt. Stick with me as we explore deeper. What happens when the asylum isn't the end, but a gateway to even stranger cures? What about the quacks, the miracle drugs, and the desperate souls who turn to anything for relief? We'll uncover it all, layer by grim layer, in the parts to come. You're still here, trapped in the grim reality of 1825, where depression isn't a diagnosis, but a curse. The asylum walls close in, the air heavy with the stench of despair and carbolic soap. Your straw mattress is a nest of fleas. Your body aches from the latest treatment, and the screams of other patients haunt your dreams. But the 19th century approach to your suffering doesn't end with cold baths and spinning chairs. Oh no, it gets weirder, crueler, and more desperate. Let us peel back another layer of this nightmare and explore what happens when the asylum cures fail, and the world outside offers its own bizarre solutions for your melancholia. Let's start with the asylum's next trick: isolation. If your depression makes you withdrawn or uncooperative, the staff have a simple fix: lock you in a quiet room. Sounds peaceful, right? Wrong. It's a padded cell, or worse, a bare stone chamber with no light, no furniture, just you and your thoughts. The idea is to calm your mind by removing all stimulation. In practice, it's sensory deprivation, and it's torture. Hours stretch into days, the silence so loud it feels like a scream trapped in your skull. Your depression doesn't lift. It deepens, clawing at you in the dark. Some patients beg for release. Others stop speaking entirely. The attendants don't care. To them, silence means success. You're not healed. You're just not a problem anymore. But isolation isn't the only tool in their arsenal. If you're deemed hysterical, a term thrown at anyone, especially women showing strong emotions, you might face the rest cure. Popularized later in the century by doctors like Silas Weir Mitchell, this treatment is a twisted mix of control and neglect. You're confined to bed for weeks, sometimes months, forbidden to read, write, or even sit up. Attendants feed you fatty foods to strengthen your nerves, and you're massaged daily to stimulate your body. Sounds luxurious? It's not. The boredom is crushing. The isolation suffocating. Your mind, already fragile, starts to unravel. The goal is to break your willfulness and make you docile. For women, it's a punishment for daring to feel too much. For men, it's a humiliation, a stripping of agency. Either way, it's less about curing depression and more about enforcing conformity. Let's say you're lucky enough to avoid the rest cure. Maybe the asylum tries moral management instead. This sounds kinder, a shift from chains to conversation. But don't be fooled. It's psychological warfare. You're sat down with a superintendent who lectures you on your moral failings. Your depression, they say, is a choice, a weakness of character. You're told to pray harder, work harder, think happier thoughts. If you cry or argue, you're labeled defiant and sent back to the quiet room. The message is clear. Your pain is your fault, and fixing it means becoming someone else. It's gaslighting on a grand scale, and it leaves you questioning not just your sanity, but your worth. Now, let's step outside the asylum for a moment. Maybe your family couldn't afford to keep you locked up, or maybe you were discharged as improved because you learned to fake a smile. You're back home, but the world hasn't changed. Your depression is still there, a shadow that follows you through the muddy streets and smoky taverns. Society in the 1800s has no patience for your struggle. If you're a worker, your boss expects you at the factory or farm, dawn to dusk, no excuses. If you're a housewife, your husband demands a clean home and a cheerful face. The pressure is relentless, and the solutions people offer are as absurd as they are unhelpful. Enter the quacks. The 19th century is a golden age for snake oil salesmen, and they're ready to prey on your desperation. You might stumble across a traveling doctor at a market stall, his wagon piled with bottles labeled Dr. Miracle's Nerve Elixir or Professor Payne's Vitality Tonic. These are concoctions of alcohol, cocaine, or strychnine. Yes, rat poison, mixed with sugar syrup and bold promises. The pitch is slick. One sip, and your melancholy will vanish. You hand over your last coins, gulp the bitter liquid, and feel a fleeting rush. Maybe it's the cocaine. Maybe it's hope, but it doesn't last. Soon, you're sicker than before, your nerves jangling, your purse empty. The quack is long gone, off to scam the next town, and you're left with nothing but regret. If tonics aren't your thing, you might turn to the era's obsession with magnetism. Animal magnetism, pioneered by Franz Mesmer, is all the rage in some circles. Practitioners claim they can cure your depression by channeling invisible magnetic forces through your body. You sit in a darkened room, maybe holding metal rods while the magnetizer waves his hands and mutters about fluids. It's theatrical nonsense, but it's convincing enough to draw crowds. The results? A placebo effect at best, a drained wallet at worst. Yet people keep coming, desperate for anything that feels like hope. Then there's the spiritual route. The 1800s see a surge in religious fervor, and some see depression as a spiritual failing. You might be dragged to a revival meeting, where a preacher shouts that your sadness is Satan's work. The cure? Repent, confess, and let the congregation lay hands on you. The frenzy of the crowd, the chanting, the pressure to feel God's grace, it's overwhelming. Some claim to be healed, swept up in the moment, but the high fades fast. You're still you, still hurting, now with the side of guilt for not being saved enough. Worse, some churches push exorcisms for severe cases, believing your depression is demonic possession. You're tied down, prayed over, sometimes beaten to drive out the evil. It's not healing, it's trauma. Let's start with the asylum's next trick: isolation. If your depression makes you withdrawn or uncooperative, the staff have a simple fix: lock you in a quiet room. Sounds peaceful, right? Wrong. It's a padded cell, or worse, a bare stone chamber with no light, no furniture, just you and your thoughts. The idea is to calm your mind by removing all stimulation. In practice, it's sensory deprivation, and it's torture. Hours stretch into days, the silence so loud it feels like a scream trapped in your skull. Your depression doesn't lift. It deepens, clawing at you in the dark. Some patients beg for release. Others stop speaking entirely. The attendants don't care. To them, silence means success. You're not healed. You're just not a problem anymore. But isolation isn't the only tool in their arsenal. If you're deemed hysterical, a term thrown at anyone, especially women showing strong emotions, you might face the rest cure. Popularized later in the century by doctors like Silas Weir Mitchell, this treatment is a twisted mix of control and neglect. You're confined to bed for weeks, sometimes months, forbidden to read, write, or even sit up. Attendants feed you fatty foods to strengthen your nerves, and you're massaged daily to stimulate your body. Sounds luxurious? It's not. The boredom is crushing. The isolation suffocating. Your mind, already fragile, starts to unravel. The goal is to break your willfulness and make you docile. For women, it's a punishment for daring to feel too much. For men, it's a humiliation, a stripping of agency. Either way, it's less about curing depression and more about enforcing conformity. Let's say you're lucky enough to avoid the rest cure. Maybe the asylum tries moral management instead. This sounds kinder, a shift from chains to conversation. But don't be fooled. It's psychological warfare. You're sat down with a superintendent who lectures you on your moral failings. Your depression, they say, is a choice, a weakness of character. You're told to pray harder, work harder, think happier thoughts. If you cry or argue, you're labeled defiant and sent back to the quiet room. The message is clear. Your pain is your fault, and fixing it means becoming someone else. It's gaslighting on a grand scale, and it leaves you questioning not just your sanity, but your worth. Now, let's step outside the asylum for a moment. Maybe your family couldn't afford to keep you locked up, or maybe you were discharged as improved because you learned to fake a smile. You're back home, but the world hasn't changed. Your depression is still there, a shadow that follows you through the muddy streets and smoky taverns. Society in the 1800s has no patience for your struggle. If you're a worker, your boss expects you at the factory or farm, dawn to dusk, no excuses. If you're a housewife, your husband demands a clean home and a cheerful face. The pressure is relentless, and the solutions people offer are as absurd as they are unhelpful. Enter the quacks. The 19th century is a golden age for snake oil salesmen, and they're ready to prey on your desperation. You might stumble across a traveling doctor at a market stall, his wagon piled with bottles labeled Dr. Miracle's Nerve Elixir or Professor Payne's Vitality Tonic. These are concoctions of alcohol, cocaine, or strychnine. Yes, rat poison, mixed with sugar syrup and bold promises. The pitch is slick. One sip, and your melancholy will vanish. You hand over your last coins, gulp the bitter liquid, and feel a fleeting rush. Maybe it's the cocaine. Maybe it's hope, but it doesn't last. Soon, you're sicker than before, your nerves jangling, your purse empty. The quack is long gone, off to scam the next town, and you're left with nothing but regret. If tonics aren't your thing, you might turn to the era's obsession with magnetism. Animal magnetism, pioneered by Franz Mesmer, is all the rage in some circles. Practitioners claim they can cure your depression by channeling invisible magnetic forces through your body. You sit in a darkened room, maybe holding metal rods while the magnetizer waves his hands and mutters about fluids. It's theatrical nonsense, but it's convincing enough to draw crowds. The results? A placebo effect at best, a drained wallet at worst. Yet people keep coming, desperate for anything that feels like hope. Then there's the spiritual route. The 1800s see a surge in religious fervor, and some see depression as a spiritual failing. You might be dragged to a revival meeting, where a preacher shouts that your sadness is Satan's work. The cure? Repent, confess, and let the congregation lay hands on you. The frenzy of the crowd, the chanting, the pressure to feel God's grace, it's overwhelming. Some claim to be healed, swept up in the moment, but the high fades fast. You're still you, still hurting, now with the side of guilt for not being saved enough. Worse, some churches push exorcisms for severe cases, believing your depression is demonic possession. You're tied down, prayed over, sometimes beaten to drive out the evil. It's not healing, it's trauma. Let's not forget the role of family. In the 1800s, mental health is a family matter, and not in a supportive way. If you're melancholic, your relatives might try home remedies first. Maybe they force you to drink herbal teas, valerian or chamomile if you're lucky, arsenic-laced tonics if you're not. Or they might insist on fresh air, dragging you on long walks through damp fields or chilly parks, believing nature will lift your spirits. It's exhausting, and when it fails, their frustration grows. Some families resort to locking you in an attic or cellar, hiding you from neighbors' prying eyes. You're fed, maybe, but ignored. Your cries muffled by thick walls. It's not treatment, it's abandonment. For women, the situation is especially dire. The 19th century loves its stereotypes, and women are supposed to be delicate, cheerful angels. Depression doesn't fit that mold, so it's often misdiagnosed as hysteria or female weakness. Doctors blame your womb, claiming it's wandering or irritated, causing your sadness. The cure? Marriage if you're single, or pregnancy if you're married. Yes, they believe having a baby will settle your nerves. If that fails, you might face pelvic massage by a doctor, a euphemism for manual stimulation meant to relieve nervous tension. It's invasive, humiliating, and does nothing for your depression. Worse, persistent hysteria could lead to a variotomy, surgical removal of your ovaries, to calm you. It's barbaric, and the scars are both physical and emotional. Men aren't spared judgment either. A depressed man is a failure, unfit for the rugged individualism the era demands. You're told to man up, drown your sorrows in whiskey, or throw yourself into work. Alcoholism is rampant, and many men self-medicate, trading one demon for another. If you're wealthy, you might be sent to a sanitarium, a fancy asylum with better food, but the same grim methods. If you're poor, it's the public asylum, or the streets. Either way, society sees your pain as weakness, and weakness is unforgivable. Back in the asylum, the days grind on. You're subjected to rotary therapy now, a machine that spins you like a human centrifuge, supposedly to stimulate your brain. It's nauseating, disorienting, and useless. Or maybe they try blistering, applying caustic chemicals to your skin to raise painful blisters, believing the irritation will draw out your melancholy. The pain is excruciating, the results non-existent. Every treatment feels like a punishment for existing, and the line between patient and prisoner blurs further. Food remains a daily insult. Lunch is a thin soup, maybe with a chunk of moldy bread. Dinner, if you're lucky, is a boiled potato or a scrap of gristly meat. The malnutrition saps your strength, making it harder to resist the despair. Sleep is a battle. Your cell is freezing, the straw crawls with lice, and the night is alive with moans and shouts. You cling to memories of life before, but they're fading, replaced by the endless rhythm of bells, bars, and brutality. The world outside isn't much kinder. Newspapers occasionally report on lunatic asylums, but it's sensationalism, not sympathy. The public sees you as a spectacle, not a person. Some asylums even charge visitors to gawk at patients, turning your suffering into entertainment. You're a curiosity, a warning of what happens when you lose control. The stigma is suffocating, and it follows you even if you escape the asylum's walls. This is the 1800s, where depression is a battle fought with ignorance and iron. The asylum, the quacks, the church, the family, all claim to help, but their cures are chains. You're not a patient, you're a problem, and the system is built to hide you, not heal you. But the story doesn't end here. There's more to uncover: secret societies, experimental drugs, and the rare voices who dared to challenge the madness. We'll dive deeper in the next part, where the shadows grow longer and the treatments get stranger. The year is still 1825, and you're sinking deeper into the 19th century's warped approach to depression. The asylum's stone walls feel like they're closing in, the air thick with mildew and misery. Your body bears the marks of treatments, bruises from restraints, burns from blistering, a lingering nausea from the spinning chair. Your mind, though, is the real battlefield, and the so-called cures are only sharpening the enemy's blade. But the story of how the 1800s handled your melancholia doesn't stop at the asylum S. Gates. Outside, a world of charlatans, bizarre experiments, and whispered secrets waits to exploit your desperation. Let S. peel back another layer of this grim tapestry and see what fresh horrors the era has in store. Back in the asylum, the staff are trying something new: work therapy. The idea is that labor will distract you from your sadness, as if depression is just a lazy mind's tantrum. You're handed a broom or a basket of laundry and told to scrub floors or mend clothes until your hands bleed. The work is grueling, the hours endless. If you're a man, you might be sent to the asylum's farm, breaking your back digging potatoes under a foreman's whip. If you're a woman, it's sewing or washing, your fingers raw from lye soap. Refuse? That's a one-way ticket to the restraint chair or a beating. The logic is brutal. If you're too tired to think, you can't be depressed. But exhaustion doesn't cure pain. It buries it, and the weight in your chest only grows heavier. Some asylums take it further with occupational discipline. You're forced to march in circles, carry heavy stones, or repeat mindless tasks like sorting pebbles. It's not therapy, it's punishment disguised as progress. The superintendent watches, jotting notes about your moral improvement, but all you feel is humiliation. Your depression, once a private ache, is now a public failure, and every task is a reminder that you're broken in their eyes. The worst part? Some patients crack under the pressure, their spirits crushed into a hollow obedience the staff call recovery. You're not healed, you're just trained to hide your pain. Let's say you're spared the work and sent to the day room instead. This is where patients are herded to socialize, a cruel mockery of community. The room is a chaos of mismatched souls, some muttering to themselves, others rocking silently, a few screaming until their throats give out. You sit on a hard bench, the air sour with sweat and despair, trying to disappear into the woodwork. Attendants patrol, quick to slap or drag anyone who misbehaves. Socializing doesn't lift your spirits. It reminds you how alone you are, even in a crowd. Your depression feeds on the noise, the stares, the constant threat of violence. The day room isn't a refuge. It's a cage without bars. Now, let's step outside again because the asylum isn't the only place peddling cures. If you're back home, dodging the institution's shadow, you're a prime target for the era's growing obsession with scientific remedies. The 1800s are a time of half-baked inventions, and depression is a goldmine for inventors with more ambition than ethics. One popular device is the electromagnetic belt, a leather strap studded with wires and magnets, sold as a cure for nervous disorders. You strap it around your waist, maybe feel a tingle from a crude battery, and wait for your melancholy to vanish. It doesn't. The belt is a scam, but it's everywhere. Advertised in newspapers with testimonials from cured patients who probably never existed. You're out a month's wages and your depression is laughing at you. If belts aren't your style, you might encounter the vibratory chair. This contraption, a favorite of some progressive doctors, shakes you violently while you're strapped in, supposedly to stimulate your nerves. It's like a mechanical bucking bronco, and the only thing it stimulates is nausea and terror. Or maybe you're offered galvanism, where wires are attached to your skin and a weak electric current is passed through your body. The shocks are painful, the results non-existent, but the doctor insists it's rebalancing your vital energies. You leave with singed skin and a deeper sense of hopelessness, wondering if you're the problem for not feeling cured. Then, there's the rise of patent medicines, a booming industry built on desperation. Walk into any apothecary, and the shelves are lined with bottles promising to banish your low spirits. Lydia Pinkham's vegetable compound is a favorite, marketed to women as a cure for nervous prostration. It's mostly alcohol with a dash of herbs, but it sells millions. Men get Carter's Little Nerve pills, laced with arsenic, or strychnine, guaranteed to invigorate the mind. These aren't medicines, they're poisons, and the side effects are brutal: tremors, heart palpitations, organ failure. Addiction is common, especially to opium-based soothing syrups that leave you dazed but no happier. You're not healing. You're trading one misery for another, and the apothecary's cash register keeps ringing. If you're wealthy, you might be sent to a hydropathic spa instead of an asylum. These retreats sound like a vacation: mineral baths, lush gardens, airy rooms. But they're just as grim. The water cure involves being hosed with high-pressure cold water, dunked in icy pools, or wrapped in soaking sheets for hours. The shock is supposed to reset your nervous system, but it just leaves you gasping and shivering. Between sessions, you're fed a starvation diet of broth and crackers because excess food is blamed for your sadness. The spa's doctors lecture you on self-control, their voices dripping with condescension. You're paying a fortune for suffering, and the only thing lighter is your wallet. For the poor, there's no spa, just the streets or the workhouse. If your family can't support you, you're sent to a poorhouse where inmates are packed into filthy dormitories and forced to work for scraps of food. Depression isn't treated here. It's ignored. You're expected to toil, breaking rocks, picking oakum, until you cheer up or collapse. The overseers see your sadness as laziness, and their cure is a cane across your back. Many don't survive the workhouse, their bodies and spirits broken by a system that punishes poverty as much as pain. Religion keeps creeping in too. If you're not in an institution, your local priest or minister might take a crack at hazaving you. Depression, they insist, is a sign of spiritual weakness, a failure to trust God. You're dragged to church where sermons paint your suffering as punishment for sin. The congregation stares, judging your red eyes and slumped shoulders. Some ministers push faith healing, claiming prayer and fasting will drive out your melancholy. You kneel for hours, your stomach growling, your mind screaming for relief. That never comes. If you don't improve, you're shunned, labeled a lost soul. The church doesn't offer comfort. It offers blame, and you carry it like a stone. Then there's the fringe, secret societies and mystical cures that thrive in the 1800s underbelly. You might hear whispers of a mesmeric healer in a nearby town, someone claiming to cure depression with hypnotic trances. You sit in a candlelit room, staring into their eyes as they drone about magnetic fluids. It's eerie, sometimes soothing, but the effect is fleeting. Or maybe you stumble into a spiritualist seance where mediums promise to commune with spirits to lift your sadness. You hold hands around a table, hearing knocks and voices, but it's all theater. The spirits don't answer, and your pain remains, now tinged with the sting of being duped. Food, as always, is a grim affair. If you're still in the asylum, lunch is a ladle of watery stew, maybe with a worm or two for protein. At home, it's bread and dripping, maybe a turnip if the harvest was good. Malnutrition is your constant companion, sapping your energy and clouding your thoughts. Sleep is no better. Whether it's the asylum's lice-ridden straw or your home's drafty attic, rest is a battle. Nightmares of leeches, chains, and judgmental faces haunt you, and you wake up more tired than before. The world outside keeps turning, oblivious to your struggle. Newspapers run ads for nerve tonics next to stories of madmen escaping, asylums feeding the public's fear and fascination. Your neighbors gossip, calling you touched or queer, even your family's patience phrase. They want the old you back, not this shadow who can't explain why the world feels so heavy. Every day is a tightrope walk, balancing their expectations with your own unraveling mind. This is the 1800s, where depression is a labyrinth with no exit. The asylum's tortures, the quack's scams, the church's guilt, the world's judgment, they're all threads in a net that traps you. But there's more to this story. The rise of alienists, the birth of crude psychotherapy, and the rare souls who fought for change. We'll dive deeper in the next part, where the shadows twist and the cures get even stranger. It's still 1825, and you're caught in the suffocating grip of the 19th century's warped view of depression. The asylum's iron doors loom behind you, their echoes of screams and clanking chains a constant reminder of where you might end up. Your body is weary from treatments that feel like punishments, blisters from caustic plasters, headaches from electric shocks, a stomach churning from toxic tonics. Your mind, though, is the real prisoner, trapped in a world that sees your pain as weakness, sin, or madness. But the horrors of the 1800s approach to melancholia don't stop at spinning chairs or quack elixirs. There's a new wave of experts emerging, strange theories taking root, and a society that's starting to notice, but not in a good way. Let's dive deeper into this grim maze and uncover what happens when science and superstition collide in the battle for your soul. Back in the asylum, the staff are doubling down on their innovations. One of their latest obsessions is caloric restriction. Some doctors believe your depression is caused by overstimulation of the body, and the cure is to starve it into submission. You're put on a diet of thin broth and dry bread, barely enough to keep a sparrow alive. The hunger gnaws at you, sharpening the fog in your mind rather than clearing it. Your limbs grow heavy, your thoughts sluggish, but the superintendent nods approvingly, claiming your vital forces are being rebalanced. It's not science, it's cruelty dressed in jargon, and you're wasting away while they pat themselves on the back. If starvation doesn't cure you, they might try counter-irritation. This is as brutal as it sounds. Attendants rub mustard plasters or turpentine onto your skin, raising angry red welts that burn for hours. The theory, the external, pain will distract your mind from its internal misery. It doesn't. The agony just layers on top of your depression, a screaming duet that leaves you gasping. Some doctors go further, using hot irons to brand small burns onto your back or scalp, claiming it draws out the melancholy. You grit your teeth through the procedure, the smell of your own singed flesh lingering, but your sadness remains, now joined by scars you didn't ask for. Then there's the shower bath, a favorite of progressive asylums. You're strapped into a wooden chair, and a torrent of icy water is poured over you from a tank above. The shock is meant to jolt your nervous system, but it feels like drowning. You choke and shiver, your heart pounding, while attendants watch impassively. Some patients faint, others scream until their voices crack. The treatment is repeated daily, sometimes for weeks, until you either improve or learn to fake it. Your depression doesn't vanish. It burrows deeper, hiding behind a mask of compliance you wear to survive. But let's say you're not in the asylum. Maybe you're home, clinging to the edges of normalcy, trying to dodge the whispers of neighbors who call you odd. The world outside is buzzing with new ideas about the mind, and some of them are creeping into your life. Enter the alienists, the 19th century's proto-psychiatrists. These are doctors who claim to specialize in mental alienation. The here is term for anything from depression to schizophrenia. They're a mixed bag. Some are genuinely curious, others are just asylum directors with fancier titles. You might be sent to one, especially if your family has money and wants a respectable solution. The alienist's office is a step up from the asylum. Mahogany desk, leather-bound books, a ticking clock, but the vibe is still grim. He asks you to describe your feelings. Maybe the first time anyone's bothered to listen. But don't get your hopes up. His theories are rooted in the same old humors and moralizing. He might diagnose you with neurasthenia, a trendy catch-all for nervous exhaustion, blaming your sadness on modern life or weak nerves. The cure, a mix of old and new nonsense. He might prescribe a change of air, sending you to a seaside town or mountain village, as if geography can fix your soul. You spend weeks in a boarding house, staring at waves or pines, but the weight in your chest doesn't budge. If the alienist is feeling experimental, he might try talking therapy, a crude ancestor of psychotherapy. You sit in his office, recounting your sorrows while he nods and scribbles. It sounds promising, but there's a catch. The goal isn't to understand you, it's to correct your thinking. He lectures you on rational behavior, urging you to suppress your emotions and choose happiness. If you admit to dark thoughts, he might label you morally insane, a term that's half diagnosis, half judgment. The sessions feel like interrogations, and you leave more confused than comforted, your pain twisted into proof of your own failure. For women, the alienist's approach is especially insidious. Your depression is often blamed on your biology, your fragile nerves, your unstable womb. Some alienists push moral hygiene, a regimen of prayer, needlework, and silence to soothe your mind. Others prescribe nerve, tonics laced with bromides which dull your senses but leave you groggy and dependent. If you're outspoken or defiant, you risk a diagnosis of monomania, a supposed obsession with one idea, like, say, your own autonomy. This can land you back in the asylum, your voice silenced by a label. Men face their own biases. Alienists see male depression as a crisis of masculinity, urging you to take up hunting or boxing to toughen your spirit. It's exhausting, and it doesn't work. Outside the alienist's office, society is starting to notice mental illness, but not in a helpful way. The 1800s are the dawn of lunacy reform, with activists like Dorothea Dix exposing asylum horrors in America and Europe. Their reports, crowded wards, chained patients, spoiled food, spark outrage, but change is slow. Most people still see depression as a personal failing, not a medical condition. Newspapers run lurid stories about madhouses, turning your struggle into a gothic spectacle. Wealthy families hide their afflicted relatives in attics or private sanitariums, while the poor are left to rot in public institutions. The stigma is a weight you carry everywhere, heavier than your depression itself. If you're desperate, you might turn to the era's growing fascination with phrenology. Phrenologists claim they can read your mind by feeling the bumps on your skull, diagnosing your depression as a weakness in certain brain organs. You sit in a dimly lit parlor while a man with cold fingers prods your head, declaring your organ of hope is underdeveloped. The cure: exercises to strengthen your brain, like memorizing poetry or staring at bright colors. It's absurd, but people pay for it, clinging to any shred of science no matter how flimsy. You leave with a headache and a diagram of your skull, your depression untouched. Then there's the dark underbelly of cures tied to superstition. In rural areas, you might be taken to a wise woman or cunning man, folk healers who blend herbalism with magic. They might give you a charm, a bag of bones or herbs, to wear against evil spirits causing your sadness. Or they'll perform a ritual, chanting over you while burning sage or slaughtering a chicken. It's eerie, sometimes comforting, but the relief is fleeting. Some healers are kinder than doctors, but others are predators, demanding money or favors for their magic. If you're unlucky, they'll accuse you of being cursed, sending you into a spiral of fear and guilt. Food remains a daily struggle. In the asylum, dinner is a lump of boiled cabbage or a greasy scrap of mutton, often rancid. At home, it's porridge or potatoes, maybe a bit of cheese if you're lucky. The monotony grinds you down, and the lack of nutrients makes your body as weak as your mind. Sleep is a torment. Whether it's the asylum's damp cells or your home's creaky bed, you're haunted by nightmares of leeches, burning plasters, and faces that judge you. You wake up gasping, the weight of your depression heavier than ever. The world outside keeps spinning, indifferent to your pain. Taverns buzz with laughter, churches hum with hymns, but you feel like a ghost among the living. Your family's patience is gone. They snap at you to pull yourself together, as if you're choosing to drown. Neighbors avoid your gaze, their whispers sharp as knives. Even the children sense something's wrong, staring at you like you're a stranger. Every day is a fight to exist, and the cures, from alienists to amulets, are just new ways to break you. This is the 1800s, where depression is a war with no allies. The asylum's experiments, the alienists' lectures, the folk healers' charms, they're all part of a system that punishes you for hurting. But there's more to this story. The rise of moral asylums, the first glimmers of empathy, and the voices that dared to fight back. We'll uncover it all in the next part, where the darkness shifts and the treatments take a new, strange turn. You're still trapped in the oppressive haze of 1825, where depression is a crime you didn't mean to commit. The asylums. Cold walls loom like a judge, its air thick with the sour tang of fear and neglect. Your skin stings from the latest counter-irritation burns, your stomach twists from starvation diets, and your mind feels like a frayed rope, unraveling with every treatment. The 19th century's approach to your melancholia is a relentless assault, blending ignorance with cruelty. But the horrors don't end with the asylum's tortures or the quack's scams. New ideas are bubbling up, some promising, most misguided, and society's gaze is sharpening, turning your pain into a spectacle. Let's wade deeper into this grim swamp and uncover the next chapter of cures that feel like curses. Inside the asylum, the staff are experimenting with moral asylums, a new trend inspired by reformers like Philippe Pinel in France and the Tuque family in England. The idea sounds hopeful. Treat patients with kindness instead of chains. Create a home-like environment to soothe the mind. You're moved to a ward with cleaner beds, maybe a window with a sliver of sunlight. The restraints are swapped for locked doors, the beatings for stern lectures. You're given tasks, gardening, knitting, or polishing furniture, to occupy your mind. It's a step up from the spinning chair, but don't be fooled. The kindness is conditional. Step out of line, refuse a task, cry too loudly, and you're back in the quiet room, the darkness swallowing you whole. The moral asylum isn't about healing. It's about control dressed in softer clothes. The real goal is to remake you into someone useful. You're taught to suppress your sadness, to smile on command, to mimic normalcy. The superintendent praises your progress when you choke back tears, but it's not progress. It's performance. Your depression doesn't fade. It's buried under layers of shame and fear. Some patients crack, their spirits molded into a hollow cheerfulness the staff call cured. Others rebel, their defiance met with harsher measures. You walk a tightrope, knowing one wrong step could mean a return to the old brutalities. The moral asylum's promise of compassion is a mirage, and you're still thirsting for relief. If you're lucky enough to be outside the asylum, maybe discharged or never committed, the world offers its own twisted remedies. The 1800s are obsessed with nervous disorders, and your depression makes you a target for every self-styled healer. One growing trend is mesmerism, now evolving into early hypnotism. You're invited to a parlor where a hypnotist, with a pocket watch and a velvet voice, promises to realign your mind. You stare at the swinging watch. His words, droning like a lullaby, urging you to let go of your sadness. It's eerie, sometimes calming, but the trance fades fast. Your depression waits patiently, unmoved by the theatrics. The hypnotist pockets your money, claiming you resisted his powers, and you're left feeling like you failed yet again. Then there's the rise of craniometry, a pseudoscience that claims your skull's shape reveals your mental state. You sit in a dusty office while a craniometrist measures your head with calipers, muttering about depressed faculties. He might prescribe mental exercises, reciting poems, solving puzzles, to strengthen your brain. It's nonsense, but it's popular, especially among the wealthy who love anything that sounds scientific. You spend hours memorizing verses, your head throbbing, your depression laughing at the futility. The only thing strengthened is the craniometrist's bank account. For women, the era's biases are a constant trap. Your depression is still blamed on your delicate nature, and doctors are quick to pathologize your body. One chilling trend is clitoridectomy, a surgical procedure to remove the part of the clitoris, touted as a cure for hysteria or nervous excitement. It's barbaric, performed without anesthesia, and leaves you scarred in every sense. The idea that your sadness stems from your sexuality is a twisted fantasy of male doctors, and you're the one who pays the price. Even less invasive treatments like uterine massage or ovarian compression are humiliating, forcing you to endure probing hands in the name of calming your nerves. Your voice, your pain, your agency, they're all dismissed as symptoms to be cut away. Men face their own indignities. Depression is seen as a betrayal of masculinity, and cures often involve proving your vigor. You might be sent to a gentleman's retreat, where you're forced into fencing, horseback riding, or cold water plunges to toughen your spirit. The exhaustion is crushing, and the pressure to perform manliness only deepens. Your despair. If you're working class, it's worse. Your boss might fire you for moping, and your only treatment is cheap gin or a priest's sermon. Alcohol is a common escape, but it's a trap. You drink to numb the pain, only to wake up with a hangover and a darker shadow in your mind. Back in the asylum, the treatments keep evolving, each more bizarre than the last. Some doctors experiment with fever therapy, deliberately infecting you with malaria or typhoid to burn out your melancholy. The fevers leave you delirious, sweating through your straw mattress, your body fighting a new enemy while your depression watches from the sidelines. Others try inhalation therapy, forcing you to breathe ether or chloroform vapors to relax your mind. The dizziness is disorienting, the headaches brutal, and the relief non-existent. Every experiment feels like a gamble, and you're the one losing. Food is still a punishment. In the asylum, lunch is a gray sludge of oats or a bony fish head floating in broth. At home, it's stale bread and watery tea. Maybe a carrot if the market was kind. The hunger is constant, sapping your strength and clouding your thoughts. Sleep is a battle. Lice crawl in the asylum straw, rats skitter in your attic at home. Nightmares of burning irons, icy showers, and judgmental eyes haunt you, and you wake up more exhausted than before. The world feels like a machine grinding you down, and the cures are just another gear. Society's starting to talk about mental illness, but it's not progress, it's fascination. Asylums open their doors to lunatic balls, where the wealthy pay to dance with harmless patients, your depression a costume for their amusement. Newspapers print madhouse diaries, sensationalized tales of lost souls that turn your pain into gossip. The public doesn't want to help, they want to stare. Your family, if they still claim you, hide you from neighbors, their shame heavier than your own. Friends drift away, scared of your strangeness. Even children sense the change, their giggles turning to wary glances. But there's a flicker of hope buried deep in this darkness. A few reformers, Quakers in England, physicians like Benjamin Rush in America, are pushing for change. They argue that mental illness isn't a sin or choice, that patients deserve dignity, not dungeons. Their voices are small, drowned out by the clank of asylum chains and the hum of quack machines, but they're planting seeds. You don't see it yet, locked in your cell or your attic, but these ideas will grow, slowly, painfully, into something better. For now, though, you're stuck in the 1800s, where depression is a labyrinth of pain and punishment. The moral asylums, the hypnotists, the surgeons, the spectators, they're all part of a system that sees you as a problem to be fixed or hidden. But there's more to this story. The rise of nerve clinics, the first whispers of psychology, and the desperate, souls who turn to the occult for relief. We'll dive deeper in the next part, where the shadows stretch further and the cures take a darker turn. It's 1825, and you're still caught in the relentless churn of the 19th century's brutal approach to depression. The asylums, damp walls press in, reeking of mold and misery. Your body scarred from burns, shocks, and starvation. Your mind is a storm, battered by treatments that feel like betrayals, each one promising relief but delivering only pain. The world outside is no kinder, with its quacks, preachers, and gawking crowds turning your melancholia into a spectacle. But the 1800s aren't done with you yet. New experts are rising, bizarre theories are spreading, and desperation is pushing people to the edges of science and sanity. Let's plunge deeper into this grim saga, where the line between cure and curse blurs even further. Back in the asylum, the staff are buzzing about nerve stimulation, the latest fad in modern medicine. One method is the friction cure, where attendants rub your skin with coarse brushes or wool until it's raw, believing the irritation will wake your nervous system. The pain is searing, your skin peeling like old paint, but your depression remains, now joined by a throbbing resentment. Some doctors prefer flagellation therapy, a polite term for whipping. You're lashed with a leather strap, each strike meant to shock you out of your sadness. The welts bloom across your back, but the only shock is how anyone thinks this helps. The logic is twisted. If your body hurts enough, your mind will forget its pain. It doesn't. It just learns to hate the hands that claim to heal. If you're deemed excitable, they might try sedation therapy instead. You're given heavy doses of laudanum or chloral hydrate, drugs that plunge you into a foggy stupor. The world blurs, your thoughts slow, but the sadness lingers, a shadow in the haze. Addiction creeps in fast. Soon, you're trembling without the bottle, your body craving the drug more than freedom. Some patients overdose, their cure becoming a quiet death. The attendants shrug, blaming your weak constitution. You're not a patient anymore. You're a cautionary tale, and the asylum moves on to its next experiment. Then there's music therapy, which sounds gentle but isn't. You're herded into a room where a pianist bangs out jarring tunes, the notes meant to uplift your spirit. The discord grates on your nerves, each chord a reminder of the joy you can't feel. If you wince or cover your ears, you're scolded for resisting treatment. Some asylums take it further, forcing you to sing hymns or dance in rigid formations, your exhaustion mistaken for enthusiasm. The goal isn't healing, it's conformity, and your depression is just collateral damage. Let's step outside the asylum for a moment. If you're home, dodging the institution's shadow, you're a magnet for the era's endless parade of cures. One growing trend is the nerve clinic, a private practice for the wealthy who want discreet treatment. You're ushered into a plush office, all velvet curtains and polished wood, where a nerve specialist promises to restore your vitality. He might use a vibratory helmet, a metal cap wired to a battery, sending jolts through your scalp to energize your brain. The shocks make your teeth chatter, your vision blur, but your sadness stays put. Or he'll try light therapy, making you stare at a blazing gas lamp until your eyes burn, claiming it brightens your mood. It's expensive nonsense, and you leave with a headache and a lighter purse. If you're less affluent, you might encounter a homeopath, a practitioner of the era's alternative medicine craze. Homeopathy claims tiny doses of substances, like arsenic or belladonna, can cure your depression by balancing your body's vital force. You're given sugar pills or tinctures so diluted they're basically water, along with a lecture about natural healing. The placebo effect might lift you for a day, but the darkness returns, and the homeopath blames your lack of faith. Meanwhile, your savings are gone, and your trust in healers is crumbling. For women, the era's obsession with female frailty is a constant threat. Your depression is still tied to your womb, and some doctors push uterine galvanism, inserting electrodes into your pelvis to stimulate your organs. The procedure is invasive, painful, and utterly useless, but it's sold as cutting-edge science. If you resist, you're labeled hysterical, and the cycle of shame and treatment starts again. Men face their own humiliations. Doctors might prescribe testicular compression or prostatic massage to invigorate your manhood, claiming your sadness stems from male weakness. The embarrassment is crushing. The results, non-existent, and your dignity is just another casualty. The occult is gaining traction, too, especially among those who've lost faith in medicine. You might be drawn to a spirit circle, where a medium claims to channel healing spirits to lift your melancholy. You sit in a dark room, holding hands as the table shakes and voices whisper. It's all sleight of hand, but the hope it sparks is real, until it fades, leaving you emptier than before. Some turn to astrological cures, where a star reader charts your horoscope and prescribes rituals, burning herbs, wearing amulets, to align your planets. You follow the instructions, clutching a talisman under a full moon, but your depression doesn't care about the stars. Society's gaze is growing sharper, and not in a good way. Asylums are becoming tourist attractions, with lunatic tours where the public pays to gawk at patients. You're paraded before strangers, your depression a sideshow act. Some asylums host patient performances, forcing you to recite poetry or act in plays to prove you're improving. The audience claps, but their eyes are cold, judging every tremble in your voice. Newspapers fuel the fascination, printing asylum exposés that mix horror with voyeurism. Your pain is a story to sell, not a problem to solve. Food remains, a daily insult. In the asylum, dinner is a watery gruel or a moldy crust, the taste as bleak as your mood. At home, it's boiled cabbage or a scrap of fatty bacon, the monotony grinding you down. Malnutrition weakens your body, clouding your mind further. Sleep is a torment. Lice infest the asylum straw. Drafts chill your bones at home. Nightmares of electrodes, whips, and mocking crowds haunt you, and you wake up gasping, the weight of your depression heavier than ever. But there's a faint pulse of change. Reformers like Samuel Tuke are pushing for retreats where patients are treated as humans, not prisoners. They advocate for gardens, libraries, even conversation, radical ideas in a world of chains and shocks. Their work is slow, their victories small, but they're chipping away at the darkness. You don't feel it yet, locked in your cell or hiding in your attic, but these efforts are a lifeline, a whisper that someone, somewhere, sees your pain as real. For now, though, you're in the 1800s, where depression is a battle fought with whips, wires, and lies. The nerve clinics, the spirit circles, the public's stares, they're all part of a machine that grinds you down. But there's more to this story. The rise of moral medicine, the first cracks in the asylum system, and the desperate souls who turn to poison for peace. We'll dive deeper in the next part, where the shadows deepen and the cures take their final, strangest turn. You're still here, in the suffocating grip of 1825, where depression is a wound the 19th century doesn't know how to heal. The asylum's stone walls are your prison, its air heavy with the stench of despair and carbolic soap. Your body is a map of scars, welts from whips, burns from plasters, tremors from toxic drugs. Your mind is a battlefield, battered by cures that feel like betrayals, each one stripping away another piece of you. The world outside is a circus of quacks, mystics, and judgmental eyes, turning your melancholia into a curse you can't escape. But this is the final chapter of our grim journey, where the last treatments emerge, the system's cracks widen, and we confront the haunting truth of what it meant to be depressed in the 1800s. Let's step into the shadows one last time and see how this nightmare ends. Inside the asylum, the staff are clinging to their latest obsession: moral medicine. This is an evolution of the moral treatment, championed by reformers who believe kindness can fix your mind. You're moved to a ward with fresh paint and a patched blanket, a faint nod to humanity. The chains are gone, replaced by locked gates and watchful attendants. You're given therapeutic tasks, polishing silver, tending roses, to retrain your spirit. The superintendent sits you down for moral conversations, urging you to confess your weaknesses and embrace proper thoughts. It's less violent than the spinning chair, but just as controlling. Your depression isn't a disease. To them, it's a failure of will, and their medicine is a lecture disguised as care. The pressure to perform is crushing. You learn to hide your tears, to nod at the right moments, to choke out a laugh when the staff expect it. They call it recovery, but it's a mask, and wearing it exhausts you. Your sadness festers beneath the surface, sharper for being unspoken. Some patients break, their spirits molded into a lifeless cheer the asylum celebrates. Others resist, their defiance earning them a return to the old tortures: ice baths, restraint chairs, or worse. The moral medicine is a gamble, and you're the one who pays if it fails. You're not healing, you're surviving, and the line between the two grows thinner every day. If you're outside the asylum, scraping by in a world that doesn't understand you, the cures are just as desperate. One new trend is nerve tonics laced with cocaine, now flooding the market. You buy a bottle of Dr. Pierce's Golden Medical Discovery, its label promising to invigorate your mind. The first sip sends a rush through you, a fleeting spark of energy, but it's a trap. Soon, you're hooked, your nerves jangling, your depression deeper than ever. The addiction gnaws at you, and the apothecary's smile is cold as he sells you another dose. These tonics aren't medicine, they're shackles, and you're chained to them as surely as any asylum cell. Then there's the rise of psychic surgery, a fringe practice blending spiritualism with medicine. You're taken to a dimly lit room where a surgeon claims to operate on your soul, using no knife, just gestures and chants. They say they're removing negative energies causing your sadness. You feel nothing, maybe a flicker of hope, but the depression remains, mocking the incense and candlelight. The surgeon charges a fortune, and you leave with less money and more doubt. It's a scam, but it thrives because people are desperate, and you're one of them, grasping at shadows for relief. For the poor, there's no psychic surgery, just the streets or the workhouse. If your family can't keep you, you're sent to a poorhouse where depression is a luxury you can't afford. You're forced to crank a mill or scrub floors, your body aching, your mind numb. The overseers see your sadness as defiance, their cure, a switch across your knuckles. Survival means burying your pain, but it's still there, a weight. that drags you down with every step. Many don't make it, their bodies or spirits giving out in the workhouse's grim embrace. Religion remains a double-edged sword. Some churches are softening, influenced by reformers who see mental illness as a trial, not a sin. You might find a kind minister who listens, offering prayers instead of sermons. But most still preach that your depression is God's judgment, your pain a test you're failing. You're dragged to revival tents where sweating preachers demand you cast out your sorrow. The crowd's fervor is overwhelming, their hands pressing on your shoulders, their voices shouting for miracles. You might feel a fleeting lift, swept up in the chaos, but it fades, leaving you guilty for not being saved. The church's promise of salvation feels like another door slammed in your face. The occult's pull grows stronger, especially for those who've lost hope in doctors and priests. You might join a theosophical society, where mystics blend Eastern philosophies with Western esotericism, promising to transmute your melancholy through meditation and rituals. You sit cross-legged, chanting mantras, but the peace they describe eludes you, or you're drawn to necromancy circles, where a medium claims to summon dead relatives to heal your soul. The table rattles, a voice speaks, but it's all theater, and your depression knows it. These rituals are a lifeline, but they're frayed, and you're still drowning. Food is a daily ordeal. In the asylum, lunch is a spoonful of rancid porridge, or a bone you gnaw for marrow. At home, it's a crust of bread and a sip of sour milk, the hunger a constant ache. Malnutrition clouds your thoughts, weakens your bones, makes every treatment harder to endure. Sleep is a torment. Lice in the asylum straw, cold drafts in your attic. Nightmares of straps, shocks, and sneering faces haunt you, and you wake up more broken than before. The world feels like a vice, squeezing you until there's nothing left. Society's fascination with madness is at its peak. Asylums host charity bazaars, where patients sell crafts to wealthy visitors who gawk like they're at a zoo. You're forced to smile, to hawk a lumpy scarf, your depression a prop for their pity. Newspapers print lunatic profiles, turning your pain into melodrama. The public doesn't care about your healing. They want a story, and you're the tragic hero they'll forget by tomorrow. Your family, if they haven't abandoned you, hide you from neighbors. Their whispers a constant reminder of your shame. You're not a person anymore. You're a problem, and the world wants you out of sight. But there's a faint light in this darkness. Reformers are gaining ground, their voices louder now. In England, the York Retreats model, clean beds, open spaces, no chains, is spreading, proving patients can be treated with dignity. In America, Dorothea Dix is documenting asylum horrors, her reports sparking laws to fund better care. These changes are slow, patchy, and often ignored, but they're real. A few doctors are questioning the old ways, experimenting with rest, therapy that's actually restful, or talking cures that listen instead of judge. They're outliers, mocked by their peers, but they're sowing seeds for a future you can't see. For you, though, the fight is now. Every day is a battle to exist, to hold on to the scraps of who you are, the asylum's moral medicine, the cocaine tonics, the psychic surgeons, the workhouse whips. They're all part of a system that punishes you for hurting. Some don't survive it, their bodies or minds giving out, their names erased from the world's memory. Others endure, not because the cures work, but because the human spirit is stubborn, clinging to hope even in hell. And here's the truth, the one that cuts deepest: you were never the problem. Your depression, your pain, your struggle, it's not a sin, not a weakness, not a curse. It's a part of you, raw and real, and the 1800s didn't know how to hold it. They tried to break you, to hide you, to remake you, but they failed. You're still here, carrying a weight they couldn't understand. And that's not failure. its strength. The leeches, the chains, the sermons, the stares, they couldn't take that from you. So let's end this journey not with despair, but with a quiet defiance. The 19th century was a dark chapter, a time when depression was a battle fought with ignorance and iron. But it's not your chapter. You're more than the asylum's walls, more than the quack's bottle, more than the world's judgment. Somewhere, in the cracks of this brutal system, there were voices, reformers, patients, quiet rebels, who saw you as human. Their fight, small as it was, lit a spark that would grow, decades later, into real care, real understanding. For now, step out of 1825. Leave the straw mattress, the cold water, the leering crowds. Take a breath, feel the air of today, and know this: you're not alone, and you never were. The past is a ghost, but you're alive, and that's enough. Thanks for walking this grim path with me. If it hit you hard, drop a comment. Tell me what stood out, what made you shudder, or just where you're at right now. Hit that like button if you're glad we're not in the 1800s, and subscribe for more dives into history's shadows. Until next time, hold tight to your light, and I'll see you in the next video.